All right. Thanks for coming back onto the channel. We have some technical difficulties on the live. Not on our end. I think the cell towers have gone wacky. So we're just going to record this guy here. Hopefully have a really good discussion. And we're going to talk about Linux package management. So for the guests, I did drop in a comment in Jitsi there. I found this article that had a good summary that just gives us some visuals to look at. So we're going to go ahead and have a look at this. So we want to talk about it because as people start switching to Linux, then they start thinking about, well, can I install my Adobe Suite, my Microsoft Office? Well, there's so many better applications out there in some of those. But really the main difference and what we want to get out here today is how do we install software? Because on Windows, you go into the wild west of the internet and you're like, let me download something. And then you hope it's not a virus or something. And then you install it and then, you get a virus or you get an application. It's like gambling. I mean, Windows is like Gambling is Anonymous, right? So you don't know what you're going to get. Of course, if you go and buy software, they have the Microsoft Store, which is improving security a little bit if they audit what's in there. But on Linux, we have package managers, and each distro has at the bare minimum a terminal-based package manager. So we're going to go ahead and talk about the package managers that we see in Linux. It'd be really helpful if I actually pulled up my notes for myself, just so I can stay on our outline here that we have specified. And so we're going to talk about the package managers. And as we talk about these, we're going to talk about the terminal-based package managers, and then we're going to talk about the GUI package managers. We're going to talk about the unified package management and things like that. And so with that, what we're going to do is we're going to dive into just looking at the different options we have, because you just boot up a Linux install. Chances are in a modern Linux build, unless you went for something really obscure, you probably have a GUI package manager. That means you have a package manager that shows up in a window that you can view the software and you can choose what you see and what you don't see. And so that really is what we're talking about when we're talking about a package manager. But on Linux, there are underlying package managers. So we're going to talk about the terminal-based ones first, because all the ones that you see in the windowing system are all going to be, overlays for what's going on under the hood. So we're just going to start by understanding that. So anybody want to jump in with package management before we start?
Only that there is usually the distribution have most likely only have one set, so you don't have to learn all these various package managers just to use your system.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you're using Linux Mint or Debian or Ubuntu, all of those are based on the Debian family. All you have to learn is apt. If you're using an Arch-based system, so Arch or Endeavor or Arco or Manjaro, you need to learn Pacman. If you're using Fedora, OpenSUSE, DNF. OpenSUSE is DNF, right? Or is it Yum? I think DNF and Yum are the same commands.
Yeah.
So it's one of those two.
Fedora's had several over the years. So
yeah, DNF is the current, and DNF's been what it has been for at least several years.
Standard now.
Mm-hmm. Of course, Solus has EO package, and then there's a few other ones out there as well.
And also Debian. When you say Debian, also Ubuntu, because it's basically Ubuntu is based off of Debian. Well,
yeah, we said that.
They don't. Not everybody knows like there's a difference.
Yeah, chances are, if you don't even know exactly what your distribution is, you're either using apt or you're using Pacman, because most distributions these days, face it, are coming down from they're either coming down from Debian or they're coming down from Arch, unless you're running exclusive server stuff, in which case you're probably going to be on DNF with Open.
Yeah, Fedora or OpenSUSE, I think, uses those.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure OpenSUSE uses Yum, doesn't it? Can somebody confirm?
Yeah, Yum.
Oh, SUSE uses Zipper. That's right.
Zipper.
Okay, they switched to Zipper.
Yep. Thank you for that update. So let's go ahead and jump over. I just found this article which just summarized it, just to give us just to give us an overview. So in this, we're talking about what the package manager's role is here. This is from Geek Flare, Lineage Package Manager Explained. So it installs packages. It removes the old packages you don't want anymore. It reinstalls packages. If there's something goofy going on, you can always force a reinstall of a package. It'll update the packages, and they avoid dependency hell. So dependency hell used to be the thing we got into years ago. Really, that hasn't been much of a big deal, especially with these full self-contained apps coming down the pipeline these days and things like that. But with that being said, the package manager is going to help you with a lot of these elements. And there's a lot of things. So here is how the package manager works. We have a Linux operating system. We have a package manager. So the package manager moves with this repository. And I like, they have 3 different things here because there's a variety of places where your repository data is. So that's your software sources. And then this is going to go back and forth between the package metadata, which basically says this is what is in the package, this is what it requires, and then once you decide you're going to install something, it takes the information from the metadata, comes down here, looks at the packages, and then it says, okay, which dependencies do we have? Let's go ahead and make sure all those are installed, and then we're going to install the packages. And all of this is done securely inside the terminal without going onto the internet, like the global internet, like the World Wide Web, Google.com, in order to find your software. It all does this with the underlying core of Linux. Here's their basic functionality. So they install the dependencies, manage the packages. They will do configuration. They can do some automation and then check package authenticity. So this is what the check package authenticity is going to prevent the scammers. And then now we wanted to get into our basic list. These are the underlying tools that will work always within the command line if nothing else is present. And so we have apt is probably your most common because it's Debian. Debian leading to Ubuntu is the most common distribution base used in Linux, I think. Is there anybody knows statistics off the top of your head? If that's incorrect, let me know. But apt or advanced package tool is what's used underlying Debian, and that gets carried on to everything downstream. So Ubuntu and Linux Mint and Solus, not Solus, excuse me. I was thinking of, what's the one that just came out? Zorin OS. That's the one. Farron, like all sorts of this kind of stuff is gonna happen. So, this will work it's very simple. You type in apt and then installs a package, removes a package. Purge will remove a package and the configuration files and things. Auto remove gets rid of leftover dependencies. Upgrade is going to upgrade your whole system. And then you can do upgrade and then give it a package name that will just upgrade that one package name rather than everything. And so
also, if you're looking for a particular package and you know the name in the terminal, you can type apt search and then the package name.
Yep.
And it'll return a list of everything that's close to it or that itself.
Yep, correct.
That's a good
Sometimes multiple versions too.
Yep.
And CLS to clear screen. I know I use that one like a madman. Or no, clear.
Yep, clear.
Linux, CLS and Windows.
Yep, that's the YouTube content creator's favorite command as we clear the screen from the errors we made to cut things out.
Yep.
Clear. You're watching something and all of a sudden it goes to a clear screen in the video. That's what we did. Whoops, something went wrong. All right. Depackage. This one is more of something that you would use with a .deb downloadable or something else that you get as a .deb. It's not, depackage is usually put on there as an accessory, not a primary manager, as I don't know of depackage specifically working back and forth with the repositories. Am I wrong about that?
Depackage will work with most anything. I mean, just like Deb, will. It's interchangeable, but I use it for like take control when I install take control on a Linux machine.
Usually you'd use depackage for fixing stuff that goes wonky. That's what
Oh,
I've
yeah,
used it for, or manual or
package
installing something.
configure
Like if you download, for example, .deb files for installing a printer driver, for example, dpackage.deb is what you'd run for that.
So the difference between apt and dpackage is that dpackage is the command that apt is using.
Mhm.
So apt is a front end to dpackage.
Yeah.
I was going to
Dpackage
say, because
will
a lot of things that
install-
I've installed in the terminal, I've actually called on dpackage to package it.
Yeah,
Sometimes
the
that happens.
apt manages all of the dependencies. Dpackage does not. And that's
Yeah.
your difference.
And you can also supply the deb package file to the apt command, and it will install it as normal, as long as you stand in the folder where the package is downloaded, or you specify the path to the package file.
I prefer using dpackage to install software because I'm a weirdo. I don't
Yeah,
know. It
he's
just makes common sense.
sadomasochist
It just
there.
makes logical sense to me. Dpackage dash.
I actually use Naila now.
Yeah, I use that one.
I
like it a lot.
it's apt bling is what it is.
Essentially, yeah. It is a lot prettier, I'll give it that. But yeah, supposedly it's more intuitive. It doesn't throw a bunch of garbage you don't need to see
Right.
up on the screen.
Yep.
That's good for a new user, except I kind of want to see everything. So if there's an issue, I can read and see what's going on.
Next one is Yum and DNF. So Yum and DNF, they have the same general syntax, very similar, install package name, remove package name, update package name. DNF is used in Fedora, Red Hat type things like that. Yum is, I forget where exactly Yum is used. But this deals with the .rpm. So if you're downloading a driver for a printer manually, you might see a .deb and a .rpm file as an option. You'd want to know if you're on a Debian system, you take the .deb. If you're on like a Fedora, an OpenSUSE, or CentOS, you'd take the .rpm version. And those are the ones that you would
And
you'd
the
use
difference
to run.
between them, and the difference between Yum and DNF is that DNF is a fork of Yum in order to enhance some features.
Bless you.
Yeah, definitely like DNF better. That's always been nice because you don't have to run on apt. You have to run a separate update and upgrade. Update was going to update the cache list on your computer compared to the repository on the internet. DNF, you don't have to do that because it checks the mirrors and refreshes the cache every command that you run. Unless I believe there's a way you can bypass that. But
yeah,
by
there's
default.
a time delay, so every 3 hours about it checks them, then it updates the list.
DNF is superior to apt. I'm sorry, it just is.
Get out of
I've
here.
used both extensively.
No, I like apt personally. That's why I run Debian on systems, Debian-based things on systems that I can. If I'm running like a server build or something, unless I have to run like a Rocky Linux or something, I tend to prefer Debian because it's I know how to use it better.
Yeah. It's what you're used to. And DNF doesn't have the variety of commands and things you can do. There's so many more things you can do with apt than you can with DNF, or it's not as clear with DNF, so it does have that.
Yep. Well, talk about not being super clear, though. Pacman. We did pass by RPM, but Pacman is definitely not clear because to install something, it's -s. Where the hell did that come from?
Yeah, that's a weird one.
-syu -r capital R lowercase
It's not
s to remove
logical
something.
at all.
Now, it is, of course, -ss, capital S, lowercase s to search for something. It is actually, once you learn Pacman and know how to use it, it is actually very easy to use. And I do like Pacman a lot. It's fun to make fun of. But it is not as on the front intuitive. So if you have to run some obscure command, you're probably going to have to go back and look it up again. But for the basic things, I mean, I know how to install a package. I know how to upgrade the system. And the good thing about this is there's other ones that's not in this list, like Yay, which interact with the Arch user repository. There's a few other ones. They all use the same exact syntax as Pacman, just to make it easier to manage separate repository bases on Arch. So those are good. Then we have Zipper for OpenSUSE, and uses RPM. So if you are looking to download a printer driver, you can get the .rpm if you're on OpenSUSE. And then Zipper, I forget all the commands on Zipper. I don't use OpenSUSE much. But it's, if I remember correctly, it is pretty easy to use.
Sorry.
Am I agreed? Yes, no? Portage. From Gentoo. I don't run Gentoo much, so yeah. There's Portage. I forgot about that one.
Many of us do.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm not a sadomasochist. I don't, my full-time job isn't just to make sure my desktop computer works. My job is like to do other things. So I just want systems that work. So I use Linux Mint, you know. EO package is not on this list. EO package is what you're going to run in Solus Linux, and it's also pretty easy to work. So those are kind of your underlying. Any more discussion on the underlying terminal-based applications?
I think that about covers it.
All right. If not,
so,
then we'll kind of move over to the we'll move on over then to the GUI based applications. So your GUI based now the GUI it's graphical user interface is what GUI stands for, and this is, you know, you go to your menu, you pull up the software manager, and you get a nice pretty window with pictures and cool stuff. You know, the stuff that makes computer guys go happy inside rather than going, it's a terminal, run away. Most Linux distributions these days do have a GUI package manager installed. Now, it is usually dependent on the desktop environment and or the distro. The distro might throw its own in. For example, Manjaro always throws Pamac in. So regardless of which distribution you're running, it's actually, I thought I did a Manjaro recently that did something really odd and didn't have it. No, that was, I forget, it was another different Arch-based system. It was Garuda. Garuda did not actually have one, but it turned out a weird quirk on just the particular desktop I chose. If you're running GNOME, you probably have GNOME Software Center. If you're running KDE, you have Discovery, most likely. If you're running Ubuntu, you have the Snap Store, which my notes has a little asterisk to remind you that Snap Store works a little bit different. That's more related to the unified packages. That's because Ubuntu has lost its mind and is doing away with the terminal-based package managers. We'll get into that in a bit. But if you're running Ubuntu or in a downstream Ubuntu that has not changed the behavior of the Software Center, you have a Snap Store that doesn't quite work the same as the rest of these. Linux Mint, all of the Linux Mint desktop environments all run the Mint Software Center, which you're not going to find on other non-Mint distributions. So it'd be kind of nice if Linux Mint released that as something in Cinnamon itself, but they haven't. But the idea here, though, is that you have a variety of different GUI tools. Now, you can always install some of these other ones. I find if I'm running a Linux distribution that doesn't have one, I generally install the GNOME Software Store. Not because I like it. I actually kind of hate it, but it does functionally work everywhere. It'll functionally work on every distribution you want to put it on. So it's a good option if you can't get something else on. The other thing I like about GNOME Software Store is it has plugins for snaps and for Flatpaks, which we'll get to in our next section, but that will allow you to install underlying repository software and things from the unified packages as well. And so there is a reason I use GNOME Software Center, even though it's not my favorite, but it is highly functional, and I use it for the pragmatic reason. And I don't really boot into my software manager much anyway, so what do I care? Any other thoughts on the GUI ones? Anything I missed specifically?
No, like you said, GNOME is kind of... Go ahead, Sabu. I'll follow up.
So on the Mandrake and Mandriva derivatives like Mageia, Open Mandriva, and there's a few others, they are using the same GUI, which is it's called RPM Drake, and you can find it in the System Control Center. Which was made by Mandrake back in the late 90s. when Mandrake was the easy to use distribution that everyone used.
Okay.
Like you said, with GNOME, it's kind of all over the place. When you install Debian and you choose this Cinnamon desktop, it has the look and feel of just about everything LMDE has, except you're missing the Mint updater, which is kind of disappointing. It uses the GNOME store for your updates, which is even a bigger problem because the software that you want to get is not really curated really good in the GNOME store in this situation. I actually used Naila and made a script to actually do all my updates. It'll ask you trigger the icon, it opens up the terminal, it goes down, it gets your update and then upgrade and shows you what you need to get. You can choose yes or no. No will get you out of it. Yes will let you continue to install it, combined with stuff built into app that backs it up. Then when it's all done, it'll ask you if you want to do flat packs. You choose yes, it'll go check your flat packs, and then you can choose yes or no for the flat packs. And at the end of it, says press enter to quit. You hit enter, and it gets out of the script.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I find that much more easy to use than the GNOME store.
Yep.
But that's one thing about going down the Debian road and wanting to have the Cinnamon desktop is you're going to be really missing that Linux Mint updater.
Well, I mean, you could always install snaps and do the snap store.
Yeah, you can go through the snap store, but to do simple updates, the script that I wrote works really good. I mean, it's really snappy.
Yeah. See, snappy. I'm telling you.
Yeah. You don't have to play with the GNOME store. The GNOME store wants you to reboot after one update. If you just get one update and it's Thunderbird, it wants you to reboot the whole computer just for Thunderbird. And I don't see a point in that.
Yeah, I tend to run most of my updates through the terminal anyway. So even on Linux Mint, I'm not usually as inclined to use the GUI updater as much as the software manager. But usually I use the software manager just to look for apps, and then I'll usually just go and install them in the terminal once I find what I'm looking for.
I do the same.
Yeah, so I mean that's the way I do. So but this does bring us down. Any other discussion on the GUI software centers?
Like myself, I do prefer the GUI whenever, on an ordinary everyday basis. I use the GUI, but it's like I can use the terminal should I have to, but I do like the GUI's a lot easier.
Yep.
Yeah. The GNOME GUI one is kind of really tricky. If you got to know partial of the name of the package you're looking for to get the GNOME one to pop with certain distros, because they do a terrible job of curating it and putting categories. I mean, you don't even have audio education and stuff like that. They have goofy stuff.
And they made it worse. It used to be really good, and then they dropped a bunch of categories for this modern rainbow unicorn poop thing. Yeah, and then all of a sudden GNOME Software Center sucked infinitely worse because a bunch of, I don't know, a bunch of shall we say, I don't know. I think we'll skip that one for now.
Discover is kind of cool, but it takes some real getting used to using it.
Yeah, that's actually Discovery has had it has had a lot of positive movement lately. The last couple versions have brought in much more improvements because it used to be horrible. And that's KDE, the default on KDE. But I do like it when the desktop environment has its own package manager, although I think they don't usually because the distro usually chooses to cram one in there in its place. So, which is okay too, because Pomok is really nice. Mint Software Store is really nice. I know it's blasphemous, but I actually like the one in Elementary OS is also really good.
I think the Linux Mint one, they still have that one curated pretty good, don't they?
Yeah, and it's actually made a lot of positive improvements in the last version, because now there's they've always had a separate button for Flatpak, but now you can search for everything, and then you can choose between the Flatpak and the non-Flatpak version, and you can also see the differences between them all. It's a lot easier to see exactly which software you're installing and why.
And the Mint updater will also update your Flatpaks too for you.
Yes, yeah, that is another thing.
Yeah, I think Discovery also does the same.
Yep. And so let's go ahead, and since we've already mentioned these words, we've mentioned Snap, we've mentioned Flatpak. We haven't mentioned app images yet, but they fall under this. These are kind of the newer unified packages. So these are all developed with all their dependencies crammed inside of them. They have been heavily praised on one end and heavy controversies on the other. And so really the biggest controversy is Snap itself, because despite the software itself is open source, the distribution method is proprietary and centralized. And that is really a big no-no for a lot of the about 50% of people come to Linux to avoid the big tech and the stuff like that. And so they see this proprietary centralized system that kind of throws up red flags. Now, if you've jumped over onto Linux because development, you don't care. And so that's why Snaps is so controversial. Half the audience loves them, half the audience hates them. Flatpak is less controversial because they run a very similar way, but the distribution method is open source, and you can actually source them from different repositories. Means that Snap does have a slight advantage that if they audited stuff, there's evidence they don't. If they've audited stuff, it has the potential to have slightly more security than Flatpak. But with Flatpak, you can audit things a lot easier.
Flatpak, I wonder about that because there's a lot of proprietary software that is now bundled with Flatpak.
Correct.
Yeah.
So the software itself can be proprietary, but the distribution method is still open sourced. And so
but there is, you can configure, and I'm not going to go into the details now, but you can edit the configure file for Flatpak and tell it to only search for and offer free software. And in the web interface, when you search for packages, there's a checkbox to only search for free software packages.
Yeah, and I think that's a good middle ground. That's a good compromise because there may very well be proprietary software we might need to or want to run. If it comes down to saying, I'd love to use Linux, but I have to use this one proprietary software package and the company produces as a Flatpak, hey, I'm okay if you have to run that one package for your work, but the fact that you can choose whether you're doing it or not doing it, I think is a good thing.
Here's another spooky thing about Flatpaks. Flatpaks are actually buried in your root directory under var lib flatpak.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go to install a brand new Flatpak, it don't ask you your sudo password to do so. And it kind of bothers me that it does it that way, and it's putting it in a secure located place.
Yeah, and that does lead to why Flatpak itself can be controversial to some people. There's definitely, this is why I don't like the unified packages nearly as much as I like this repository versions of things, hands down.
At least with those, you have to put in a password to install them. With Flatpak, it puts it right in your root directory without even a password.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then I'm trying to think. I think that is correct. App images is probably the least controversial, but the only reason they really haven't taken off so much is the management of them. There's no central store. I think there's might be one or two central stores now, but there's nothing is mainlined enough that people know. I don't know what they are off the top of my head. I think I've encountered them. App images, though, do have an advantage, whereas Snaps and Flatpaks, you generally can only run one version of them on the system. I think there's ways to run multiple, but they're more complicated. App images just behave like individual files. You can have every version of the app image available and run them simultaneously.
And you don't need to install the package. You just download it and drop it in your on your desktop folder, for instance, and you can and it's only located there, and it doesn't store any files anywhere in the system. Everything is contained within that file.
Yep. Yeah, so there's a lot of advantages to that. Of course, some of them now will have the option. I'm not sure if it's dependent on the desktop or the distro or the app image itself, but I know I've run some app images. When you run it, it'll say, hey, would you like to create the desktop file? So they'll automatically create the desktop file and add it to the menu, which was one of the issues with them, is that you'd have to manually do that in the past, and you don't have to do that anymore in some circumstances.
Yeah, and then
I don't use app images, though, enough to know exactly what
you get some
circumstances
in-between systems, too, like not quite an app image, but not quite a flat pack. It's just a zipped up all-in-one that you unpack into a folder.
Yep.
And then you go find the executable and run it in the terminal, and the package runs with everything it came with.
Yeah, that was kind of the old way of distributing new test software before putting it into things, which is, you'll still find that a few different places. Mulvad browser still has that model, although it's slightly different that even on Linux, you download the package, execute it, and it runs an installer system.
LibreWolf you can get like that too. Firefox you definitely can get that way too.
Yeah.
Like if you're on Debian like I am and you don't want to use Firefox ESR, you can get that all in one thing and just build it into your home directory and make it part of it.
Yep. So the last thing I want to mention about the unified packages is these have actually paved the way for your more immutable systems. So the advantage of the immutable system is they're less prone to malware and other major errors. And the problem with them is you can't really install software anywhere or do any modifications, generally speaking, to the main root directories or things like that. But you can install any of these unified package systems. So it gives you a way that you can have an immutable system that can't otherwise be changed, but still have all of the software availabilities. So unified packaging is really good in the respect that it gives us the possibility of moving forward with even more secure Linux distributions, assuming that the software is going to work for you in Snap, Flatpak, and or app images put together. So that's what I have to say about those. Anything else?
Yeah, Flatpak out of all of them comes with some helpful tools too if you can't quite get things off the ground. They have Flat Seal, which will help you open up avenues to get your Flatpak to work. And to manage your Flatpak situation, there's also Warehouse.
Yeah, there's a few options out there for those. Anything else on unified packages?
I'm at the point where I don't even have any experience with snaps.
I'm much with you.
Yeah.
All right, we'll wrap up the Linux package management section here, and then we'll get into the comments here. So thanks for watching this part, guys, and stay tuned for comments. Thank you for watching this video from Switched to Linux. This channel would not be possible without the backing of the program supporters scrolling on the screen now. You can be a supporter at Patreon at patreon.com/TOMM or at thinklifemedia.com. I also want to thank the open source community who creates such excellent software that makes producing this show possible. Please remember to support your software communities. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.